Hello, and welcome. My name is Ksenia. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, the founder of Satori Health, and I am on a mission to heal guts and be the last practitioner you ever have to see. Now, in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact framework that I use with my clients, which is the 5R method. And once you hear it, you will understand why this process actually works and why the other things that you've tried have only ever given you temporary relief. So let's get into it. Now, before we dive in, I want to make sure this is for you. So let me paint you a picture. Maybe you've been to your doctor because you've been struggling with a lot of digestive issues for a while. Maybe they ran a blood test, maybe a stool test, maybe even a colonoscopy, and everything came back normal. So they came back to you and said, it's just IBS. Have you tried eating more fiber and drinking more water? Maybe at best they gave you a low FODMAP handout and told you to try out this diet. Or maybe they told you to take Miralax every day. Or maybe they even give you a prescription for Linzess. They didn't actually give you any real answers. They didn't really dig in to understand why it is that you're constantly bloated from anything you eat, super gassy all the time, constipated, or even maybe having alternating constipation or diarrhea, and just not able to have a normal functioning gut. So maybe you went off on your own and you tried some elimination diets. Maybe you tried low FODMAP, maybe carnivore, maybe you tried excluding gluten and dairy. Maybe you even tried probiotics that you saw an influencer promoting online. Or maybe you've tried fiber powders, or maybe a combination of all of those things. But the bloating, the constipation, the constant digestive discomfort have never really gone away. Maybe you got some temporary relief and things got better. Maybe they got worse. But they're still ruling your day. You're still planning your whole day around your guts. You don't feel confident in your body. It's getting in the way of your social life, of your romantic life, of your professional life. And you're sick and tired of your whole day just being ruled by your gut. You're having to plan everything around it, every outing, every trip, even your business meetings. You can't focus. You're so uncomfortable and you're just freaking sick of it. And you're certain that there must be a solution. Then you're in the right place. I'm glad you found your way here because I am here to tell you that there is a solution. It is reversible. I know because I've been there. I've gone down that path for the last 20 years of being bounced around, of being gaslit, and not having any questions to these answers and being sure that this isn't the rest of your life. This isn't how you're willing to live. Now let's get into how we can actually heal this for you. So why do other random protocols fail? Now, when your doctor didn't dive in deeper, it's not because of ill intent. They just don't have the right tools in their toolbox. Their role is to rule out disease. And that's something they do very well. So the good news is that if the doctor kicked you out of their office without giving you a real diagnosis, that means nothing really bad or really serious was wrong. But that means that you do have some dysfunction in your gut, which is where functional health practitioners come in. So why do other random protocols fail? If doctors don't run functional lab testing, because that's just usually not in their toolkit, you can't assign it to a diagnosis, they aren't able to find the right dysfunction. And because of that, they might just give you maybe some antibiotics, maybe some laxatives, but that doesn't actually identify or remove your personal root cause. All right? Then some functional health practitioners maybe give you some probiotics or fiber powders. Well-meaningly, they can be done in the wrong sequence. So if probiotics are introduced too soon and your gut isn't ready for them, it can cause more harm than good. So if we start working on repairing the gut lining before removing any identified pathogens, it's basically like trying to rebuild the walls of a house that's still on fire. It's quite difficult to do. So it's really important to follow the right sequence in these things, and we will get into the sequence shortly. So a lot of these are just surface solutions, and they're focused on managing symptoms. So what to take to reduce bloating, right? Which supplement, like peppermint oil, to take to reduce bloating, or which fiber powder to use, or which kind of magnesium to use to get you to have a bowel movement. These are band-aid temporary fixes that might help modulate your symptom in the moment, but don't actually do anything to identify the reason it's happening and fix that at the root cause so it stops happening. An analogy I like to use is if you were walking around and you stepped on a nail, what would you do? Would you go and put antiseptic on that nail and take painkillers to cover the pain? Over time, you would become more resistant to the painkillers and to the antiseptic, and the infection would keep growing and would keep hurting to walk on it? Or would you rather find the nail, take the nail out, and then work on healing the wound that it left? Obviously, when I put it that way, that's the right sequence of events. But unfortunately, with gut health, a lot of people are just focused on symptom management rather than digging into why the symptoms are happening in the first place. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to figure out your root cause. Okay, so meet the 5R method. It's a sequential protocol, not a one-size-fits-all. It is as unique as each person is. There isn't two protocols that look exactly the same because it will depend, first of all, of what's going on inside your body, what your health history is, what your habits are, what your preferences are, what your lifestyle is like, and what your life requires. Because if a protocol can't fit in your life, you're not going to do it. There is no person that's just going to put their whole life on pause for 6 months, social, professional, personal, family. You can't just pause everything and go live in a mountain while you're healing. Your protocol needs to fit into your lifestyle. So the 5R method is, first you need to remove the stressors and pathogens, which you would uncover with lab testing. The second would be replace, which is restore lost digestive capacity. That's why replace. Reinoculate, which is rebuilding the microbiome. Repair, which is healing the gut lining. And rebalance, which is optimizing the whole system. So I want you to notice something. This is a sequence, not a menu. And a lot of protocols fail because they do just one and don't continue with the rest, or they pick something out in the middle when the body isn't ready for this. So you have to walk through each one of these steps to have long-term, forever relief. Now let's get into each one of those R's. Okay, R1, remove. So this is a targeted elimination based on your functional lab data. It's not guesswork because it's individual to you. So we're going to remove some inflammatory foods. I mean, there are some obvious ones that are for everybody, like alcohol should be reduced during the time of healing, and refined sugar and processed foods. However, with the labs, we're able to see if you are showing a sensitivity to gluten, if you are showing a sensitivity to dairy, because there's no sense in removing or restricting foods from your diet if you don't need to, if your body isn't getting an inflammatory reaction from it. Now then we need to address the pathogens and the parasites. So those are identified through your lab work. And unfortunately, without lab work, there is no way to know what's going on, what bacteria, if any, you have, what fungal overgrowth is possibly causing your symptoms. Maybe you have a parasite. Do you have an underdeveloped microbiome? Do you have an overgrowth of bacteria? All of these things are foundational in guiding how your protocol is going to look like and how your healing journey is going to look like. And if we don't have these inputs, we're just shooting darts in the dark. And that's actually really dangerous. So if you put somebody on some antimicrobial protocol, but they don't have a bacterial overgrowth, you would be killing off the good bacteria. We don't need to be doing that. So it's really important to run the GI map here and figure out what's going on for you with bacteria, yeast, and parasites. And then the third point is your environmental triggers. Now these are more generalized, but again, it'll be individual to you because we need to do an inventory and see what kind of toxins you're exposed to, whether at home, at work, or anywhere else you may spend time. Is there maybe some mold exposure? Is there heavy metals? Are you taking certain medications? Are there certain ingredients in your cooking utensils or in your beauty care products? Again, this is a bit of a deep dive into what's surrounding you in your life. Now let's jump to step 2. R2 replace is all about restoring digestive capacity. This is the upstream digestive function that influences how well we digest downstream, so in our intestines, in our small intestine, in our colon. So here we're taking a look at your upstream organs, which we often neglect to think about, like your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas, and your stomach. Is your stomach producing enough stomach acid? Otherwise, you're not breaking down your food properly. Is your pancreas producing enough enzymes? Otherwise, you won't be able to digest and absorb that food properly. Is your liver producing adequate bile? Is your gallbladder functioning properly and releasing the bile? Because all of those components affect what the terrain will look like in your small intestine. So a lot of people come to me with a SIBO diagnosis. And although that's a correct diagnosis, what's incorrect is treating SIBO in isolation, because you always have to understand, why is the bacteria overgrowing in the small intestine in the first place? Do we have enough digestive capacity? If the stomach acid is not breaking down your food properly, and the enzymes aren't able to assimilate the food in your small intestine, and there's not enough bile arriving, then food in large undigested chunks just sits around in your small intestine, and then bacteria ferment and overpopulate. So if we just keep killing off the SIBO without rebuilding this digestive capacity upstream, then it's going to keep coming back. Because it will be like trying to take water out of a boat that's flooding without first plugging the leak. It's an endless game. That's why for so many people, SIBO keeps coming back over and over again, because the reasons why it's happening aren't being addressed. So it's really important that we support bile, that we make sure that we have adequate stomach acid production, and that we are producing enough digestive enzymes. So you could eat the perfect, cleanest diet in the world. If you're not assimilating the nutrients from that diet, whatever is coming in is going right back up. Okay, so this is what R2 is all about. Now let's jump into R3. So our third R is reinoculate, and it's all about rebuilding your microbiome. So this is the step a lot of people jump to before addressing R1 and R2. And this is an important part of your gut healing. But if you get to R3 before you've completed R1 and R2, then it's like throwing seeds on concrete. You're not able to get into the soil and grow. So it's important that we first fix the terrain and create the right environment for your microbiome to be replenished. So in this step, this is when we're introducing targeted probiotic strains, depending on what your labs show what you need. Because supplementing with probiotics of strains that you already have a lot of isn't going to be helpful. We have to rebuild the populations that are lacking for you personally. Then those probiotics, of course, need prebiotic support. So prebiotics are the food for the probiotics. And if we don't feed them, then they're just gonna die off. I don't know if you know this, but 70% of your poop is actually bacteria. It's not the food that you eat. That's only 30% of your poop. The rest is bacteria, so we're constantly recycling bacteria. Now, if you don't feed those populations that you've ingested through capsules, you're just gonna poop them out. They're gonna die off. But if we feed them with prebiotics, that's where the magic really happens. They eat the prebiotics and they create postbiotics as a byproduct. These postbiotics act as fuel for the cells and help the mucosal barrier be repaired. So this is before we even take any supplements or take any action to repair the mucosal barrier ourselves. The byproduct of the probiotics and the prebiotics starts to do that for us, okay? So again, just reminding you that reinoculating a gut that's still inflamed is like planting seeds into dead soil. It's really important that this step follows the first two steps, and also super important to choose the right probiotics for your unique gut, okay? So jumping into R4, which is repair. Here we're actively working on healing the gut lining. Now, as I mentioned, the postbiotics, short-chain fatty acids that are being produced from your probiotic and prebiotic action are already doing some of that work for you. Now, we may also supplement with some just to accelerate that healing, give ourselves that jump start. Another powerful thing to use here is also immunoglobulins for some people. These are the primary fuels for your intestinal cells, and they're going to help rebuild those tight junctions and reduce that strain and the inflammation that your gut is struggling with. Then depending again on what your labs show, we might plug in some zinc carnosine, some glycine, some glutamine. There's a lot of different tools we can use to rebuild the connective tissue of your gut lining. I also want to mention that we have a 4 to 5 day cycle of life for our gut lining, meaning your gut lining renews itself every 4 to 5 days. So your body is already doing a lot of that repair work for you. So as long as you've done steps in R1 remove and R2 replace correctly and remove the things that are bothering, that are hurting your gut lining, your body is actually helping you along. It's repairing the gut lining. And so we're just going to use these levers to give it that boost and repair the gut lining a little bit faster. Now, the other important point on R4 is sleep and stressor reduction. We will already look at that in R1 and remove, because if you're not sleeping, if you're not resting, you will never be able to heal. I'm sorry to say that and to be so categorical, but sleep is actually going to have more impact on your gut than diet, than supplements, than exercise, or anything else like that ever could. Sleep is the most powerful supplement that you can take. But here we're really just going to double down on that, because your quality of sleep should increase by this point as well already. Again, stressor reduction. So stressors are something that we're taking a look in R1 at, because stress isn't just emotional and mental. Your body perceives all stress as the same kind of stress, whether it's an infection or an environmental toxin, or it's anxiety from your boss having yelled at you in the morning. For your body, all that stress is the same kind of stress. But because we had so much work to do during R1, R2, and R3, we weren't really looking at our mental and emotional stress maybe as much as we can now that we're in this phase where your body's inflammation has reduced and it's rebalancing a little bit, so you can actually work on your nervous system. You have the space to work on your nervous system, which takes us all the way to R5, which is rebalance. And this is optimizing your whole system, so these wonderful results and this new fully functioning gut lasts you for the rest of your life. And like I said at the beginning, so that I'm the last practitioner you ever have to see, because now you have all this knowledge, all these tools in your toolkit to maintain this good health on your own without needing a coach, without needing a doctor. I mean, for this specific issue, I want to leave you with a framework that you can follow realistically within your life and live well and live healthy. So during rebalance, we really take a deep look at your gut-brain axis. So how your nervous system affects your gut, your hormones, your overall well-being, your fertility, your work output, your exercise output, your ability to heal and repair, what your vagal tone is. We didn't really jump into it during this training, but there is something called the vagus nerve, which is the main communication highway between our brain and our gut. And improving your vagal tone will have a very positive impact on your gut motility, on your serotonin production, on your dopamine production, make you more motivated, happier, less anxious of a person. We really double down on working on your HPA axis. So that's your adrenal health, so your ability to be stress resilient, your ability to go from a stress state to a relaxed state. So that's sympathetic to parasympathetic, or basically like survival mode into rest and digest mode, because this will affect your overall longevity, your mitochondrial health, your well-being, your ability to age well and healthily. And we're also going to take a look at your hormones even deeper here, because your hormones are the communication signals in your body that allow for you to stay balanced for the rest of your life. So if you optimize these communication pathways, you will optimize your health. And just a sustainable lifestyle through all the factors that matter. So diet, rest, exercise, stress management, supplements. What do you need for the long term? What is a realistic health framework that you can implement day in, day out, that will make you feel good? And obviously you would have resolved your gut issues by now, but not just not have gut issues. How do you feel your best self? What is the framework that's also realistic to do within your day-to-day life? So it's where we look beyond the gut. We address the full picture and we leave you knowledgeable and able to apply all these things to remain healthy for the long run. All right, so what do we use to make all of this happen? Here I'm just showing examples of 3 tests. The tests depend on the person. So for everyone, I do run a GI map. For some, we run a Dutch test. For some, we run a different panel called the stress and hormone panel. For some, we use the OAT test. For some, it's the metabolic wellness profile. It really depends what symptoms and health complaints you're coming with. The GI map is quite universal. I mean, because I work on gut issues specifically with people, and the GI map is really the most fantastic tool to give us an insight. They are all useful tools, indispensable in terms of creating a protocol that actually works. Because if we're applying a one-size-fits-all generalized protocol for you, the odds that that protocol lines up with what's going on inside of you are like 1 in a million. With these lab tests, we can actually make a protocol that is going to fix your issues, because your issues are unique, as I've mentioned many times, to you. So these are just some of the functional labs for your personalized roadmap. There's so many labs that are useful out there, but I do try to keep them to a minimum because they're expensive and I want to save my clients costs, right? So we will only run the labs that we really need to affect the most change that we can for you. Now you have the map, right? You have the map of each step. The honest truth is, it's one thing having the map, it's another thing applying the map, right? I know it might have sounded like a lot of information, a lot of steps, and a little bit confusing. As you heard me say many times, the most important thing here is actually having your lab work, because otherwise the recommendations, to be honest, are likely not going to work. Of course, there are some general recommendations that work for everyone. Sleeping 8 to 9 hours every night, eating whole foods and reducing processed foods, reducing alcohol, moving your body, exercising, walking. So of course, these are things that work for everyone. But if you've been struggling with chronic digestive issues for a long time that haven't budged despite you eating healthier than everybody else that you know, and taking care of your body and your health and working on your stress and working on your sleep, and you're still struggling with chronic digestive issues, that means something deeper is going on that we can only see through the lab work. And then we have to systematically apply the 5R process to heal your gut once and for all. I hope this clarified to you what is the exact process that heals the gut. It is complicated because health is complicated, because the body is complicated, because the gut is complicated. But it is doable, and this 5R protocol has worked for tens of thousands of people. Okay? So that's where I built my gut revival method from. This is what I use for my clients. The functional lab suite, the personalized protocol that I've covered with you, the DRESS method, which is the diet, rest, exercise, stress, and instead of sleep, I should have said supplements. Sorry. And then the 6 months of expert support. 6 months because it takes time to implement those 5 steps. That's a lot of steps. It takes time to affect change. And in my experience, it takes 6 months. You will start seeing improvements before the 6-month mark, but it takes 6 months of work to make sure that it sticks, to make sure that you don't have to go through something like this ever again. You do start seeing improvements as early as 8 weeks in, but it's a 24-week protocol that actually lasts you for life, okay? I hope that was informative and not overwhelming and confusing. If you're ready to just like dive in and figure out finally what the hell is going on with your gut and take the journey to heal once and for all, 6 months from today, you're ready to stop planning your life around your gut, have daily, consistent, complete bowel movements, not have to worry about social situations or romantic situations or feeling gassy all the time or having your stomach hurt, scared of traveling and vacationing because your gut is ruling your day. Stop being scared of wearing that tight dress because your stomach is going to pop out and make you look 6 months pregnant. If you're ready for all of that to be behind you, I've added a booking link for a free discovery call with me where we can see if we're a good fit, if you're the right person for this program, if I'm the right person to help you. And we can just chat and create a strategy of these 5 R's that will work for you. So feel free to book in, and if not, I hope that you found this masterclass useful. Have a great rest of your day.